Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Brittany Ramsey. We begin tonight with the district's latest COVID-19 numbers and a slightly concerning trend as the number of confirmed variant cases has nearly doubled over the past 48 hours. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is reporting 11 new VOC cases today, bringing the total to 24. Those variants were detected in individuals that had already tested positive for COVID-19 and are not part of today's new case count. There are 10 new infections being reported today, all in the Thunder Bay area. 5 are due to close contact, 3 have unknown exposures, and 2 are related to travel outside northwestern Ontario. The total case count now sits at 3,070. 69 are still considered active, which is 2 more than on Saturday. Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 patients at the regional hospital has fallen to 7, with just 1 in the ICU. Hospital officials say they're prepared to accept patients from provincial hotspots to help alleviate the burden, but no such patients have arrived over the past week. The Health Sciences Centre is currently about 80% full. Ontario's healthcare system continues to face immense strain due to COVID-19, and now the province is formally requesting help from the Canadian military to send medical staff to hospitals. In a statement, Ontario's Solicitor General says the province is working with the federal government to identify resources that could be deployed. Specific details have yet to be released. The news comes as a group of healthcare workers from Newfoundland and Labrador are expected to arrive in Ontario tomorrow. Meanwhile, health officials are underlining the importance of seeking proper medical care after a shocking death in Brantford. A 13-year-old girl has become one of the youngest people in Canada to die of COVID-19. Emily Vigas tested positive for the virus along with her sibling and her mother, who remains in hospital. Beth McDonald reports.
The death of a 13-year-old girl is being felt deeply across the GTA and in the Ontario legislature.
I rise today with a heavy heart to seek the unanimous consent of this House to observe a moment of silence in memory of Emily Victoria Vigas, a 13-year-old from Brampton who's become one of the youngest Canadians to die from COVID-19.
As MPPs stood in the House and reflected, condolences have been pouring in from Brampton's mayor.
When you think about a loss like this, you know, it stings. It stings not just the family, the neighbors, the friends, the classmates, the hospital.
Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie tweeting, "My deepest condolences to Emily Vigas's parents, family, and friends. To lose someone so young to this virus is truly heartbreaking." And from Toronto's mayor.
Very disconcerting about this is that kids are not eligible to be vaccinated, and yet this tragic case has proven that they can get COVID-19. So my condolences as well go to this family, which I'm sure is devastated.
The girl was a student with the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board. It is with great sadness that we have learned of the recent death of a Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board student. This is a loss to the entire DPC-DSB community, it said in a statement. Our prayers go out to the family, staff, students, and all who are impacted. Along with prayers, the girl's death is also highlighting the risks of going to work during this pandemic.
The father, an essential worker who had no choice but to go to work. His family wasn't leaving their home. You know, the risk was, you know, he was working in a warehouse, and it goes to show the consequences of COVID are real. They're severe, and so when we talk about the need to vaccinate essential workers, it's not some trivial comment.
The third wave has been hitting younger people compared to previous waves. One expert calling her death horrific, but also extremely rare.
Of course it can happen, and it does, and this is an awful example of this happening, but it still is a very, very rare event.
Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Meanwhile, Thunder Bay's Chamber of Commerce backed a call from its provincial body pleading with the Ontario government to adopt a temporary paid sick leave, which was stricken down earlier today. The Chamber's letter was addressed directly to Labour Minister Monty McNaughton. The request outlines the benefits of a government-paid pandemic sick leave and how it would not only protect workers, but the province as a whole. Chamber President Charla Robinson says the lack of consistency with paid sick days is problematic. It's not most notable with frontline businesses like the restaurant and retail industry, which usually have limited sick days available to workers.
We need to be able to ensure that they're not going to work sick, but then we also need to ensure that if they are feeling sick, that they feel comfortable to stay home to make sure that it's not COVID. And so it's sort of a two-piece thing because we do know that there's still a lot of asymptomatic COVID, and so folks don't even know that they're sick.
Robinson says something needs to be done to fill the gaps in the federal program for paid sick days, and the province and the Government of Canada need to work together. The leader of a series of anti-mask and anti-lockdown demonstrations across Canada saw most of his convoy turned away at the Ontario-Manitoba border today. Rally organizer Chris Sky is planning a demonstration in Thunder Bay tomorrow.
So I'm with the convoy. We are on our way from Winnipeg to Thunder Bay, approaching the so-called Ontario border. People like me, they're not going to be able to hassle because I am an Ontario resident, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle the other people. They've already threatened us with fines and arrest for anybody who chooses not to so-called comply.
As he said, Sky is from Ontario, and that allowed him to pass through the OPP's border checkpoint. But at least 3 vehicles in his convoy were forced to turn around. Thunder Bay Mayor Bill Morrow has released a statement saying any gathering that does not adhere to provincial orders and public health guidelines is incredibly disrespectful to the public. And Morrow says City Police Chief Sylvie Hoth has been notified about tomorrow evening's planned rally at Waverley Park. The union representing Thunder Bay transit operators is speaking out following an incident at the City Hall Transit Hub. Last week, photos posted to Facebook caused an uproar. They appeared to show a security guard taking pictures of 2 men slumped on a bench as transit drivers watched. President of Amalgamated Transit Union Local 966, Fred Caputo, says frontline operators are subjected to verbal and physical abuse on a daily basis and that more drivers are quitting than ever before. He says these situations are often one-sided because photos and videos are posted online with little to no explanation of the full incident. Caputo is calling on the government to help with increased funding and security for operators and improve shelters and mental health support. He believes drivers often deal with situations that are outside their job descriptions.
Their job is at this time, it's driving a bus, getting people safely to their destinations, and customer service. And unfortunately, they get into some situations where they just don't know how to deal with it. Our operators are not trained to deal with those situations.
Caputo stressed that COVID has also worsened the situation. Transit operators are extremely worried for their health and safety. He says the union has been advocating to get vaccinations for their drivers since day one, but they haven't heard anything just yet. Thunder Bay City Council will be presented with the first quarter budget variance report tonight, and there's also a major infrastructure project up for approval. Preliminary site work is now underway at the Edward Street Bridge. The 50-year-old span is scheduled for a full replacement this year, pending City Council's approval of the $6.4 million contract. The bridge has undergone some small repair work over the years, but the city's project engineer says it makes more sense to build an entirely new bridge. The roadway will be completely closed from early May until the fall. And council will receive some good news regarding city finances. The latest variance report shows the city is $3 million above its targets, with more than half that amount being COVID-related. Ontario is looking to crack down on a growing number of speeders and stunt drivers, and it's planning to increase fines and suspensions. A joint announcement today by the Ministry of Transportation and the Solicitor General. The new bill lowers the threshold for street racing charges on roads with speed limits under 80 kilometers an hour and allows police to charge anyone traveling 40 kilometers an hour above that speed with street racing. Stats show that stunt driving charges have increased 52% from last August till March.
Under the proposed legislation, drivers caught street racing will immediately face a 30-day roadside driver's license suspension and a 14-day roadside vehicle impoundment. These are substantial increases to the existing penalties that send a strong message to reckless drivers. Your behavior will not be tolerated.
The bill also includes up to a lifetime ban for those convicted of a 4th infraction. Local advocacy group Not One More Death has released a new list of suggested measures they want implemented to improve the lives of street-involved people here in Thunder Bay. Not One More Death is the group behind the recently wrapped up CareBus pilot project, which offered people a respite from the cold along with free transportation, food, and supplies. In its latest letter, the group has highlighted more areas of concern, calling for a safe sobering site, a COVID-19 care plan for sheltering and transporting intoxicated individuals, and outdoor hand washing and bathroom facilities. Group spokesperson Carolyn Whipp says the ongoing lockdown restrictions have further limited shelter options for vulnerable people.
I think since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen kind of, ongoing the loss of these spaces, but really now I think it's being felt, and the way that it's being responded to, I think we would like to see change and pivot more towards models of care versus models of discipline and policing.
The gaps are still there now that these services are gone or reduced. And then additionally, like the safe sobering wet shelters, the very first suggestion on our list was part of our proposal to City Hall, and we haven't seen any movement on that. And it's still a crucial change, I think, that needs to happen among the other things that we listed.
The group would like to once again present the recommendations to City Council, but there are no plans to do so at this time. For the full contents of the letter, head to the Not One More Death Facebook page. A Northern Ontario distillery is expanding to add a second location right in the heart of downtown Port Arthur. Rowe Distillery is in Hearst, about 5 hours east of the city, but now it's set to bring its world-class vodkas, whiskeys, ciders, and other alcohol production here. Avery McRae reports.
Taste the Northern Ontario charm. That's the slogan for Rowe Distillery, based out of Hearst, Ontario. The family company specializes in handcrafted small batch spirits for connoisseurs. The distillery has won multiple awards globally for their products, including the popular Loon vodka, and will now be bringing that presence to the growing downtown core of Thunder Bay.
We're a tourist attraction. Another reason is Hearst is only 5,000 population. We don't get that much foot traffic. So the idea behind it is to get more people to come to the distillery.
Thunder Bay is renowned for its restaurants. It's a destination now. Lots of local food oriented. And so, like I said, it becomes a destination for tourism.
Marie Morin and Marcel Rowe, who co-own and also make the spirits, will set up shop on South Court Street. To be more precise, the distillery and tasting room will take over this vacant building, which formerly served as Port Arthur Motors and Badani Motors body shop from the early 1950s until it closed in 2000. The unique structure certainly needs some work, but Rowe assures it will be a spot for all to come.
People are going to freak out when they see what we're going to be building inside of there. It's going to be like a saloon. And it has the look of a saloon almost, And
the saloon look isn't the only unique aspect Rowe Distillery will focus on. The duo plans on having community ciders where residents can bring in their apples and other fruits and be taught how to make their own cider and even take it home with them. The same will be done with whiskey for those who grow their own barley, which is unlike anywhere else in the province.
It's going to be a different way of thinking of distilling because there's no other distillery that does this,
It's called like more experiential tourism, what they call. So that's what we're tapping into.
The pair are hoping to have their new distillery open by this Christmas. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Another reason to wet your whistle.
Yeah, no kidding.
Very cool. Fiona, not the best timing for me today. It was overcast most of the day where I was, but then that